And hello and welcome back to the E3BL podcast. I'm your host Hagen, once again joined by Britlet Kevin. Kevin, say hi.
Hi.
And along with Kevin today we have two more individuals from Billet, Jake and Brian. Please say hello.
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 Today we'll be discussing the book Wuthering Heights and our critical runs based on certain aspects of the book, and we'll be defending each of our claims. For those who haven't read Wuthering Heights, it's a story about a man named Heathcliff who becomes vengeance-obsessed when his soulmate marries off to another man. Heathcliff wreaks chaos upon the people around him, and even affecting the next generation that follows him. Our critical lens assignment had us essentially analyze a particular lens that addressed the gender, class, ethnicity in Wuthering Heights. So we'll start by sharing them one by one. Who wants to go first? Any volunteers?
Nice.
There's all Jake right here.
Sorry, I didn't get that. My connection was.
Oh yeah, same here. Connection's pretty bad, but it's you, Jake.
Oh, Jake, you're on? Yeah, go ahead.
Comes up first in the thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Picture.
Okay, so I'm just reading off the. Okay, so I said that basically there's a lot of different character relationships in Wuthering Heights that are examined through class, and it's kind of there's four main socioeconomic classes. That is, the old money rich, the new money rich, the sort of emerging middle class kind of well-off person, and the poor and destitute. You have kind of the personifications of each are. The old money is represented by Hindley and Edgar. New money is represented by Heathcliff. The emerging middle class is kind of the narrator. What's his name again? Mr. Lockwood. And kind of the poor is like Nellie the servant, and the other servants like James and stuff. So with that, there's conflict between the new money and the old money, with Heathcliff often directly either attacking or doing everything he can to hurt Edgar and Hindley. And there seems, and yeah, that's mostly what it is. And I had, Heathcliff is originally kind of in that poor class, but he eventually sees his only way to fight the old money to become, the only way to gain status is through gaining wealth. So he goes and runs off for a few years to create money. And I had a quote that was where Heathcliff says, "Don't turn me out for those pitiful, silly friends of yours. I'm on the point of something, sometimes of complaining but I will not." Basically, he's telling Catherine that, why are you choosing her over me? Only because he has more money.
So what you're basically saying is that it's just one massive currency war. Wealth war, essentially. All right.
And so when he's poor, the only way he sees to gain Catherine is to go out and make money.
Yeah, and rise in the social ladder.
Yeah.
I had a similar critical. I was analyzing it on class as well and saw something similar. Yeah, Heathcliff is essentially like the radical guy. He wants to make change, right? So that's why he's got to go out there, make some wealth, come back, show them who's the one actually on top. Any opinions, Kevin?
Yeah. I thought that it was that Heathcliff really believed to make more money, but the end, it still didn't work out for him though, since Catherine ended up dying.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that would be my point as well, how it didn't really end up very well for, I guess, the new money here. And my question would be, what do you think, considering this interpretation. What do you think the author is trying to say here about that?
I guess that kind of, no matter how hard, like, there are certain facts of life that happen. No matter how hard Heathcliff tries, he still ends up kind of losing everything that he wants in the end. And he kind of sees as Edgar still having that with, like, him marrying Catherine. So in some ways, kind of, I think she's trying to say that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, you can't change stuff, which is a kind of dark message, but I don't know.
Huh. That's a pretty hot take there, Jake.
Oh,
It's probably pretty representative of the times, how things are set in stone from the very beginning.
probably also as the author comes from a more wealthy background, maybe she's trying to enforce that message to prevent or discourage anyone else from trying to take it from them.
Makes sense.
The
Alrighty.
evil bourgeois capitalist trying to repress the workers from rising up. Thing.
I mean, that's probably how Henley reacted to that, right? Reacted to Heathcliff in the beginning,
Yeah.
Yeah.
putting him down. Alrighty. Jake, is that all from you?
Yeah, I mean, that's mostly what it was about there.
Alrighty. Any other questions?
Nope, that's it for me.
Alrighty. Moving along. Next up, Kevin.
Okay. Well, I did mine about social norms. I basically said that author's trying to say that social norms, following them will just lead to you being miserable. My main example was how Catherine said that she couldn't marry Heathcliff because it would degrade her. The quote was, "It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff," and so after that, she's basically miserable her whole life between both of them. She just done what she wanted with her heart, and she probably would have had a happier life.
Were there any other examples of social norms in the story?
Was kind of thinking about Nellie because she's in like completely part of the family, really, but she doesn't have as much power as everyone else does. Like that's also part of it.
I think there's also the whole thing with religion and how Heathcliff kind of refuses to ever, follow the religion, Christianity, or he refuses to go to church and stuff, and he's kind of often outcasted by it.
Like,
Didn't they end up pursuing religion though afterwards?
Heathcliff? I don't think so.
Like I thought after like Mr. Earnshaw died, they turned to religion while waiting for Hindley to return.
No, I think it's just that he goes and finds Catherine, who's in the church.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
alrighty.
recall them
Catherine
both
turns
not
to-
going to church. I recall there being a whole thing about that they didn't go to church and no one noticed.
Oh, yeah. When they were kids, right?
Yeah.
They were doing off some wars. Yeah.
Alrighty.
I guess the other thing for on this topic is that what it means to, I guess, marry well for a woman in that era. So we know that the Lintons are wealthier than the Earnshaws. So she to marry well in the perspective of someone in that time would be marrying a man of greater wealth than you or of like greater social standing. So I concur with Kevin's idea that like she was really restricted by the time and kind of like the social norms.
Yeah, I do see that, and it's kind of, I guess it's really exemplified when you have Mr. Lockwood kind of commenting on later when he's like, why would Heathcliff ever live in Wuthering Heights when he owns the Linton's estate, whatever is something Grange.
Oh yeah, Thrushcrest Grange also.
Grange, yeah. And it was kind of like this whole like it's so much better and more immaculate than what they had. So there might have been that whole trying to fulfill what the like trying to raise status of the family could have been part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think that's it from you, Kevin, right?
That's it.
Alrighty, moving along. Brian, you're up.
All right. So I didn't look at the critical lenses. So my critical lens isn't gender isn't on that document. It's I looked at it from a nature perspective, environmental perspective. So my thing was
So like the setting.
I analyzed the conflict between Heathcliff and Hindley. I said that was representative of the conflict between nature and civilization. So like, the character of Heathcliff, he kind of represents nature. You know, he's an orphan. We don't know where he's from. He has this weird thing where he runs off into moors. And then we have Hindley, who's like from this refined family, and you know he's like all the trappings, all the bells and whistles of like civilization. You know, he's got servants and whatever. So my thing was when Hindley, representing civilization, like tries to assert his dominance over Heathcliff over and over throughout the story, just like how civilizations destroy the environment historically and have tried to assert dominance over the environment, and that doesn't work out very well. We see that like in we see that Heathcliff doesn't like he gets beaten, you know, by Hindley, but you know he doesn't really care. I had a quote that was I think Nelly talking about how he after he got like beat up by Hindley, I don't know how to pronounce that. He doesn't care. He doesn't shed a tear or anything or even flinch. And I think that's representative of how like even no matter like what civilization or like people do, they can't like really destroy the environment to the extent that it won't come back. At this time, anyways. And then once Henley drinks himself to death, which I thought was representative how civilization can't. If you don't go eco-friendly, civilization cannot sustain itself, and will destroy itself because it consumes all resources. Heathcliff comes back and reclaims everything. Wuthering Heights, just like how nature will reclaim everything once human civilization gets destroyed.
Deep.
Thank
Very
you.
hot take.
Yeah, it was pretty hot.
I think also part of it is, you know, they always call him like the gypsy kid, and he's
Yeah.
like, and there's that part where he like immediately is able to tame that horse or whatever, or get well with the horse. And, so yeah, he's definitely, and you know, he's found on the streets without any parents. So I guess you could, yeah, it's pretty easy for him to be like the personification of nature.
Yeah.
The one question for your claim, so you mentioned that like the portion where the civilization could not sustain itself, right?
Yeah.
Like once Heathcliff left, I think.
Yeah.
Was there evidence of like their everyday lives going terribly wrong or something like that?
Well,
I was mostly thinking about how. Oh, Jake, you can go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I do kind of have the kind of, I guess, they kind of, especially Hindley becomes kind of miserable and an alcoholic right after that, and then you have Catherine who, you know, she thinks she finds something, with Edgar, but you know, as soon as he comes back, she realizes what she's lost and how her whole kind of thing was a lie.
Yeah. So I had a quote from what it was Isabella Linton's letter. So like, as Jake said, Hindley becomes kind of like an alcoholic, and he doesn't really take care of the house. And like when Isabella visits Wuthering Heights, a bit later, she like describes the kitchen as a dingy, untidy hole. And then I think we get some other examples of how like the walls and like the rooms inside the house aren't like clean or anything, and they're very mistreated. Or so I thought like that's if we take the house as like the environment metaphorically, then Hensley's destroying the environment, and he takes of course the place of human civilization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Certainly an interesting take, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. I guess it's my turn now.
Yes.
So my critical lens was some like Jake's was a class-based one, and I decided to analyze it based upon classes and define that class instead of more so a position or standing. It's more so like a state, like a state of mind. It's very evident in the story. I had a few pieces of evidence here, defining it as a matter of state and circumstance, and that the social class is ever changing, a constant influx, adapting to whatever factors are present. One of them, I decided to use characters as evidence. And one of those characters would be Heathcliff, of course, starting as an orphan and rising up, picked up by Mr. Earnshaw, leaving that very bottom class, but was treated harshly by his inhabitants in his childhood, though he does get eventually accepted into the family, regaining a new class identity, but eventually is mistreated by Catherine's interests, running off, degrading him of that class standing as well. So that was one part of my evidence anyways. So I essentially just defined class, as I said earlier, more so like a standing of things, essentially.
I wonder if I guess Hareton could also be an example of that, but maybe in the opposite vein of what's his face, Heathcliff, because he went from like being the heir to Wuthering Heights to being just like a servant, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I could probably use someone like some of the children as well as examples, right? Since they're brought down low to the working class essentially of the household.
Yeah.
Same thing with Linton, who's basically used as a way for Cliff to take the Grange now.
The Grange. All right. I think that wraps up our discussion. Any final remarks?
No.
No.
No? All right. Thank you for listening to the E3BL podcast, and stay tuned. I don't know when we'll do this again. We'll see.